אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא ועת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה.
Welcome to the weekly Torah Perspective talk. A few days before Rosh Hashanah, Parshas Haazinu, and in the pre-production talk with the committee, we speculated what is there to say about Haazinu, and my reaction was you can spend a lifetime on 2 or 3 or 4 psukim in this week's Seder because it's chock full with symbolism, with hidden meanings. It's also one of the most difficult parshas in the Torah. Actually, I think there are 3 parshas that stand out because they are very difficult to understand. 2 of them will be coming up after Yom Tov, Bereshis and Noach, until Avram Avinu appears on the scene in Lech Lecha. Somebody very close to me once said, when in the beginning of Lech Lecha, it's as if somebody switches on the light. All of a sudden you see a world that you at least half recognize. Before that, you're talking about really a world that we don't know. We have no contact with it. And in a certain sense also, Haazinu is talking about a world that we do not have such direct contact with, and that actually starts right in the first pasuk. Haazinu hashomayim v'adaberu. The heavens should lend their ear. Haazinu is from ozen, should lend their ear, and I will speak. V'sishma ha'oretz im lefi, and the earth shall hear, or let the earth hear, the utterances of my mouth. There's a difference between dibur and amiro. Adabero is from dibur, and imrefi is from amiro. It's difficult always to find the correct translation of words. This is a phenomenon that we came across in previous talks many times, and we will in the future also come across it many times. It's both speaking, and of course even in English we have various words for speaking. We have saying and uttering and speaking. Adabero comes from dibur, and dibur is related to davar, to a word or a thing. It is exactly the same thing in Hebrew, because in Hebrew there are no such thing as empty words. The entire notion that is embedded in our culture is don't talk, do. As if speech is not a form of action. Speech is just as much an action as anything else. And I can bring you a proof. We mentioned Parshas Bereshis, the first parsha in the Torah. Hashem, the Creator, created the world by speaking. So his words are actions. The Amiro, it's related to the Arabic word emir, a ruler. It's a milder form of speech. Dibur is very often used for harsh speech, and Amiro is used for a softer speech. Why that should be related to preeminence, which is actually one of the meanings of this root aleph mem resh, is preeminence. Lahamia means to elevate to a certain status, or to single out, or to have a special relationship. And I think that's the key to understanding why Amiro is a softer form of speech. It is a speech that creates relationship. It's a speech that reaches out to the other person. So basically this tells us that there are 2 ways of communicating. There's a way of communicating which is action directed, and there is a way of communicating which is relationship directed. Both of them are relationships, but it depends on what you relate to. Actions are a relationship between you and the world around you. The world around you acts upon you. Simply when you look around, the light that is reflected from the various surfaces, that creates a visual effect, which is caught by your eye and interpreted by your brain. And now you construct in your brain a world with which you tell yourself you have a contact. What you forget is that the contact goes via an interface. You're not directly experiencing any reality out there. What you are actually experiencing is an interface between the rest of the world and you. That interface is formed by your sensory apparatus, by your perception apparatus, and the world leaves its imprint on that interface, and you read it from the other side of the interface into your mind, and then you act upon the world in exactly the same way. You don't interact with that world directly, no. You push words, which are actions in this context. Dovar is both a word and an action. And you push it onto your interface, whatever that interface with the world is. It could be your job, it could be your marriage, it could be your community, but they're all interfaces with a world that hides behind that interface. That is the world of Dibur. The world of Amiro works between two entities that reach out to reach each other and have a relationship through these words. It's not for nothing that we use words when we want to be close to somebody. Even pictures, a scene of a boy and a girl deeply in love with each other. They whisper each other niceties, right? Our sages recommend that we should relate to our marriage partners by speaking softly to them, by engaging with them in speech. And we all know how words can wound, but our words can heal as well. This is why purity of speech, nikiyat halashon, the cleanliness of the tongue, is such a key concept in Judaism, and why corrupted speech, lashon hara, right? Speech that is not there to heal, but it's there to break, and nothing to do with truth or falsehood. On the contrary, sometimes you need to actually, that's the halakha, sometimes you have to say something which is not strictly true for the sake of peace. And sometimes, very often, you're not allowed to say something, although it's perfectly true. If it harms another person, if it puts another person down, don't say it, unless there is an overriding reason why you should say that. Okay, we're not going to speak about the various aspects of Lashon Hara, of the laws of forbidden speech, but we're quickly going on and finding out how we connect this with Rosh Hashanah. And I'm going to quote from our tefillah on Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur as well. We say these words. They are words that are familiar to us, but as very often we have to look at these words with fresh eyes and try to hear them anew. And in the end of the Kedushas Hayom, the bracha after the three introductory blessings of the main prayer of the Amidah, we have this passage: Elokeinu Elokei Avosseinu. It's after Yalev Yova. Elokeinu Elokei Avosseinu, our God and the God of our fathers. Meloch al kol ha'olam kulo bichvodecho. Be king over the entire world in its totality, kulo, all-encompassing, bichvodecho, with your kavod, glory. It means heaviness. It means import. Import in English also means, if something has an import, it weighs heavily. That is covered. V'nosei al kol ha'oretz bikorecho, and be elevated above the whole world, kol ha'oretz bikorecho, with your yikor, with your preciousness. V'hofa v'hadar ga'on uzecho, and be revealed in appearance, v'hadar, in the splendor, ga'on uzecho, of the greatness, I guess, of your might. Al kol yoshevei sevel artzecho, over all those who live in the inhabited world of yours. Tevel means the inhabited world, the family of mankind, if you want to call it that. Artzecho here means, Eretz means not just the land as in the land of Israel, no, it means the entire world. And why? V'yeda kol pa'ul ki atof alto. Then every pa'ul, we will leave this untranslated, we will look at it. Every pa'ul will know, v'yeda kol pa'ul ki atof alto. V'yavin kol yitzur ki ata yitzato. Those are two words, yeda v'yavin. Somehow some da'at, some knowledge will be imparted, and pa'ul means that which has been actioned. Pu'ula means an action, means a deed. Right? That's pu'ula. Po'el means a worker. It's a modern Hebrew word for somebody who has a job. He's a po'el. Bank HaPo'alim is the workers' bank. Right? So a pa'ul is something or somebody or some entity which is the result of a pu'ula. It was brought about by some action, and everything that has been caused and everything that is the result of some action will be revealed that you, the creator, have caused it. You have done it. It is your pu'ula. V'yavin kol yitzur ki ata yetzato. And every yitzur, everything that has been formed, everything that has taken shape, will discern. Yavin is not yeda. Yeda means to know, to experience, to have a visceral experience. But yavin is something that you come to the conclusion. Lahavin comes from the word bain. Bain means between. As we say, you discern something, you discriminate between this and that, you make a distinction, and from that distinction you know what it is not and what it is, and therefore you now understand. This is understanding. It's not knowledge, it's understanding. That everything that got formed because of you. The Yomar, and then we'll say, Kol asher neshama ba'apo, then everything that has neshama ba'apo, that has the breath, we're talking about the breath of life, ba'apo, in its nose, Hashem Elokei Yisrael Melech, Hashem, the God of the people of Israel, Melech is king, Umalchuto Bakol Mashal, and his kingdom will reign over everything. These are incredible words. This is like a program for the future of humanity, which is breathtaking. I mean, what are we talking about here? That everything that ever happened in the world, Kol Pa'ul, will be recognized as being the result of divine action. Do me a favor. Have you visited Auschwitz? Have you read the history of the 30-year war? Have you heard about the Crusades? V'yeda kol pa'ul ki atof alto. It's an unbelievable statement. It's a breathtaking statement. But God's kingship means nothing less than that. A fulsome recognition that all of reality, in all its myriad different aspects are the result of one single source of all being, and that is God. We had some discussion pre-production about the way that in the public discourse these days the expression godlike is being used by people who do not believe in God. What do they mean by godlike? How can you compare something to a notion that you yourself don't have any use for? You don't have, you deny that there is such a notion as God, and this is always interesting, you know. Atheists are fascinating beings because they know so much about the God that they don't believe in. They know so much more than I know about the God that I do believe in, that you wonder what makes them such unbelievable theologians, that they know all these things, right? And it's also, of course, very typical that atheists of a Christian background, it's the Christian God that they don't believe in. They haven't heard of any other God. And Jewish atheists have a quarrel with the Jewish idea of God. And Muslim atheists of a Muslim background, I've known a number of them, quarrel with the... They're not quarreling with God. None of them has any idea what they're talking about. Why? Because this knowledge, this hasn't come yet. We have no concept of that yet. This is the challenge of Rosh Hashanah, that we're talking about the kingship of God. We have no problem. We have no problem with our emunah. That goes very well. We nurture it in our environment. We nurture it in our relationships with other people with a similar outlook, and we reinforce it in each other. But is this da'as? Is this knowledge? Is this bina? Is this discernment? Have you had this experience? Have you, in the language of Rosh Hashanah, have you been mamlich HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Have you elevated Hashem as king? And what does that mean? Okay, that's one quote from our Tefillis of Rosh Hashanah. Another quote on a pivotal moment, 3 pivotal moments in Musaf after Tekiah Shofar, this year, of course, on Sunday. It's a different subject, why on Shabbos we don't blow. Anyway, whatever it is. After Tekiah Shofar, we say, Hayom haras olom, Hayom yamid b'mishpot kol yitzurei olomim. Here again, this word yitzurei olomim, everything that got formed, that was formed in all the worlds, in the world over here, in the world over here, in the world over here, in the world over here. All those worlds that we talk about in Jewish mysticism, Kabbalistically, we talk about various worlds. It's a gross misunderstanding if you think that these are kind of hidden worlds that are like not this world. That is the same thing as saying that the piece of plastic in your wallet, used to be a piece of paper, now it's a piece of plastic, is a piece of plastic and not 20 pounds. It's of course both a piece of plastic and 20 pounds. It's also, for some people, the last 20 pounds in their wallet. And for other people, it hardly plays any role because they have another 5,000 under the mattress in the bedroom. It has many different roles, that same piece of plastic. You don't say, therefore, that these are different things. No, they're exactly the same thing, but seen through different frames of reference and different lenses. This is the same with the so-called olamim that we're talking about. It's called Yitzurei Olamim, the various ways of looking at exactly the same thing, because ultimately what we're looking at is what? Is God's creation. That's what we're looking at. That is why we say here, Hayom Harat Olam. You look in your machzor and you will find it translated, today is the day of the creation of the world. This is a wrong translation. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say Hayom Briat Olam or Yetzirat Olam. It says Harat Olam. Harat Olam The root is He Resh He or He Resh Yud. The Hebrew word for pregnancy is Herayon, right? And pregnancy plays a role. The Kriyat Torah on Rosh Hashanah is about the conception of Yitzchak. When there is something going on with conception and pregnancy and Rosh Hashanah. And of course, we find this notion in the Gemara. We have a Machlokes, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Eliezer, about on what day the world was created, or not so much in which month. And it's a Braise in Shabbos Daf Yud Omid Beis in the Talmudic tractate of Shabbat 10b. It says the following: Tanya. It says in the Braise in Mishnah say, Rabbi Eliezer Alma B'Tishrei Nivra Ha'olam. Rabbi Eliezer says the world was created in Tishrei. B'Tishrei Naldu Ovos, B'Tishrei Mesu Ovos. You see again birth and death. B'Pesach Nolad Yitzchak. All about birth. B'Rosh Hashanah Nifked Sora Rochel V'Chana. On Rosh Hashanah, Sora, Rochel and Chana became pregnant. Rosh Hashanah Yotze Yosef Beis Asurim. On Rosh Hashanah, Joseph was released from prison. This is Rabbi Eliezer. His Machlokes is Rabbi Yehuda. He says, no, the world was created in Nisan. The problem, we're not talking about Rabbi Yehuda now. Let's talk about Rabbi Eliezer, who says in Tishrei the world was created. Well, even if you say the world was created in Tishrei, it was not created in Tishrei. It was created in Elul, on the 25th of Elul. That's the if you calculate back. Because Rosh Hashanah is not the day of the creation of the world. It's the day of the creation of Adam Arishon, of first Adam. Not the first human being. It doesn't mean Homo sapiens. It means Adam. And you should be very careful to equate words from Lashon HaKodesh, from the Holy Tongue, into what you think are equivalents in English. No, Adam means Adam. It doesn't mean man, it means Adam. And then we find an English word man in order to kind of reflect what it is. But I've said it so many times, do not translate as if you are actually conveying the full meaning of the word. It does not happen. Every traduire, how do you say in French? Traduire, traduction, that's it. Every translation is a betrayal. And that goes for any two pairs of languages, but even more so for the language that, according to our Jewish tradition, was used in order to create the world. These words, we spoke about davar, word being an operation, being an operative notion, that words and action are synonymous, they're the same thing. We're not talking about Rabbi Yehuda now, we're talking about Rabbi Eliezer and his notion that the creation of the world was actually happening in Tishrei, and the first of Tishrei is the day that Adam Arishon was created. So we have to go to the place where it is described in the Torah. Vayitzer Hashem Elokim et ha'adam afar min ha'adama. And God formed, that this word Vayitzer, the Yitzur, gave form to, formatted or whatever, gave form to man, afar min ha'adama, dust from the ground. We said last week about atem nitzovim, you are standing, meaning you're planted with your feet on the ground. It's not only our feet that are on the ground, our origins are from the ground. Our origins are not from above. The stuff out of which we were made is afar min ha'adama. Right? There's no magic involved here. There's no mystic element being injected into the ground. No, it is afar min ha'adama. But then something happens. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim, and he breathed into his nostrils nishmas chaim, the breath of life. Vayehi ha'adam lenefesh chayo, And then man became, Vayihi, doesn't mean man was, it means man became, lenefesh chayo, into a nefesh, spirit. It's not spirit. And nefesh, the word nefesh in Aramaic, nafshi means I myself. It can also mean my will, right? Mimon nafshoch, however you want it, says the Gemara, right? The Gemara says, when it brings an argument and it says whatever one of two alternatives you adopt, it leads to the same conclusion, and that's called mimon nafshoch. From whatever you want, whatever alternative you will choose, it doesn't make a difference. So nafshoch, your nefesh, there means whatever you wish. That's what. So a nefesh is an entity that has wishes, goals, aspirations, that wants to get somewhere. Therefore, it is actually synonymous with being alive, right? Because every living being has goals that it pursues, right? Even an amoeba that swims in some solution senses around its sugar molecules that it wants for its metabolism and swims towards it. It has a whole system to detect it with receptors, and then that drives some kind of motor, like you have these motors that you hang, the Yamaha motors that you hang outside your, right? And these amoebas also have a rotor there. So they have a goal. There's nothing in the world that is not goal-driven, if it has a nefesh. That's what nefesh chayon, a will to live. Now let's look at what Onkelos says about this. Onkelos, his name, he was actually a Roman. His name was Aquilas, and he was a nephew of a Roman emperor. And he became a convert, and we know him as Onkelos. He translated the Chumash into Aramaic, but and this is not so well known, he also translated the Chumash into Greek, the famous Aquilas translation, and are very similar. He lived in a town in Turkey which was called Sinope. He's known as Aquila of Sinope. You can look him up in Wikipedia. The Wikipedia article, by the way, denies that it's Onkelos. I think they're wrong. It is Onkelos. Anyway, whatever, he translated the Chumash into Aramaic, and we have it printed in our Chumashim. You go to shul, you may not always look at it, but in this verse, this is the translation. Uvra Hashem Elokim Yos Odom Afro Min Aro. Pretty straightforward translation. Vayitza is translated by Uvra, right? And he created, not he gave form. He deviates there a little bit. But Hashem created man from dust of the earth. Unefach ba'apauhi, and he blew into his nostrils, listen carefully, nishmeso dechaye, the breath of life. And then the next words are always misunderstood. Vahavos bo'odom leruach memalelo. And you may have heard this numerous times, that according to Onkelos, what makes man into man is the gift of language. Is that he is a ruach memalelo, that he is a speaking spirit, a speaking ruach. It's not what Onkelos is saying. Listen carefully what Onkelos actually says. Vahavos be'odom, in man or through man, le ruach memalelo. It became, vahavos, a ruach memalelo. What became a ruach memalelo? Not man. It says be'odom, in man, or even through man. The preposition base can also mean through, right? I do this by means of this. That's also the same preposition be. Be'odom can be translated through man, through the appearance of man on the earth. The nishmas de chaye, the nishmas chayim, the breath of life, became a speaking ruach. It is that Nishmas Chaim that became a speaking ruach. Not that we became a speaking ruach, no. By the fact that we acquired this status of being possessors of language, we got the opportunity to actually express the Nishmas Chaim, which is not our Nishmas Chaim. We received it from Hashem. He blew it into our nostrils. It's not ours, it's His. But in us, it can become a Ruach Mamalelo. What is Ruach? Ruach is, the word Ruach is then translated as spirit, but if you look at how it is being used, it also means wind. And again, that doesn't imply that Hebrew uses the same word for two different notions. No, it means that wind and spirit are the same thing. What is, as we say, the tzad hashovesh shebohem, what do they have in common? They're both propellers. A spirit drives, the spirit drives in a direction, and so does the wind. The wind, a sailing ship, a yacht is being propelled through the water. You want to know where west is. If there's a west wind blowing, you put a wet finger in the air and you know where west is. It is a direction giver. That is what a ruach is. As a wind and as a spirit, it gives direction. This direction was there right in the beginning of creation. And the spirit, the wind of Elohim, of God, was blowing over the water. What kind of water? Nobody mentioned any creation of water. I've sometimes speculated that Mayim is a plural. It is a plural, of course. But what is it the plural of? And my speculation is that it's the plural of Ma. Ma means what? And the waters is the what's of the world, the ingredients of the world. And by the way, in English, what and water are related. In German, was and Wasser. In Dutch, wat and water. In Romance languages, you have qua and aqua. What and water seem to be related to each other. This is why you find in all the mythologies of the world the primordial waters as a notion that everything was born in water. And of course, we are born in water. We spend 9 months surrounded by water in the womb. And biologically, life started in the water, in a watery environment. If you follow science and astrophysical explorations, when they look at exoplanets, planets in other parts of the universe, and they were trying to find out whether there possibly could be some form of life, and the first thing that they look for is what? Water. They look for traces of water, because it seems to be that water is about the one substance that is completely necessary for any form of life. It's very mysterious why that should be. Water is a very strange substance, right? For example, I'll give you a couple of reasons why water is strange. Water is strange because most things become heavier as they become solidified. They become denser, right? And therefore, if water freezes, you would expect the ice to sink to the bottom, right? Water is different from almost any other substance in that it reaches its highest density at 4 degrees above freezing, and then after that starts to become lighter again, so that water is on top of a frozen lake, which means that life in the lake can survive the cold, because it's isolated now against the cold by this layer of ice, which actually keeps the water warmer, right? If that would not be the case, every life in water would freeze over every winter, because it would freeze from the bottom up, right? And therefore, much quicker it would solidify to a complete, right? Even in the ice ages, because water has this quality, life survived the ice ages underwater. I'm not talking about Ice Age is 40,000 years ago. I'm talking millions of years ago, the face of the so-called frozen Earth. Anyway, it's not so terribly important. We're not learning geology here, we're learning Torah. So that is the Ruach Elokim, the Spirit of God, the direction that God gives to the world. And it becomes in man a Ruach Memalelo. It becomes in, we verbalize it. We give it expression. We say it. And therefore, V'yomar kol asher neshama be'apal, and therefore shall everything that has this breath of life in its nostrils will say, Hashem Elokei Yisrael melech u'malchuso v'kol masholo. Hashem, the God of Israel, is king and he reigns over everything. It is saying out loud on Rosh Hashanah, which was implied in the very beginning of creation, that the world is pregnant of possibility. Hayom haras olam means the world is pregnant with possibility. And the possibility, where does the possibility come from? From man. And how? Because man can deliberate. Man can think about his actions, can formulate thoughts and plan his future. He has a time horizon. I mean, stupid people have a time horizon that reaches into next week. For some people it's tomorrow, and for even poorer people it is tonight and they can't see any further. And for people who are obsessed and insecure, they try to plan their entire life and they will not readjust their plans. What we are supposed to do is to interact with our environment constantly, to update our own alignment with the Creator's will, our own nefesh. We have to give an opportunity to this nishmas chayim to be in us a nefesh chaya, and then become the instrument of verbalizing, of formulating in our deliberations, in our learning, in our interpretation of each other, right? When we interact with each other, we try to understand one another. We try to see in the other person a yitzur, somebody who has been formed by Hashem, who is also a product from the same pu'ulah. If I understand that I am a child of God, and so are you, this changes our relationship immediately. So this is the way in which we make Hashem's kingship in the world concrete. We make it concrete by allowing the Ruach Elokim, that was Meracheves al Pnei Hamayim, the Spirit of God that was hovering over all the possibilities, all the mayim, all the what's that this world contains. And it was there right from the beginning. Although there was Choshech al Pnei Tehom, although there was darkness on deepness, there was lack of light, nevertheless, Hashem spoke, gave an utterance. Vayoma Elokim ihi al, let there be light. This light is the light of Torah. It illuminates us. It guides our actions. Mitzvot are the guided actions that are based on the words, on the divrei Torah, on the words of the Torah. That's why every letter in the Torah is a source of life and a source of direction. Torah means direction. That's what it means. The Horot means to show a way, to instruct. This is what we do. Now, that is the pregnancy of the world. That is Hayom Harat Olam. That's the pregnancy of the world. And it's up to us to see to it that the child lives and grows up and it's not a stillbirth. The most tragic thing is a year that's wasted, in which nothing happened. Even a year in which bad things happen is better than a year in which nothing happened. So as we prepare ourselves for a new year, I forgot to even mention, and it's of course completely characteristic for the Jewish outlook on life that New Year is not at the beginning of the year, but right in the middle of the year. Right? It's right in the middle of the year. It's the beginning of the 7th month. What are you talking about? That's a new year? Yes, that's a new year, because the day of Rosh Hashanah is singled out as one day, but really it stamps its nature on the entire year. It tells you that every Shana, every Shinui, every change should be guided by the underlying notion that the world has only one single king. You are not king, I'm not king, I'm not necessarily right, I'm not necessarily wrong either. But I can never assume for myself the arrogance that I have the truth. No, what we should recognize is that there is such a thing as truth, and you're looking for it and I'm looking for it, and we each come from our own direction, but we know that we have been created as people in whom the divine direction gets formed. V'havas ba'odom leruach memalalo. I should add to it, maybe as a parting shot, that memalalo, to speak, comes of course related to the Hebrew word milah, which means a word. Milon is a dictionary, but it's also a word that has to do with ears of corn, with fertility, with getting a produce, and many words of speech and growth are related to each other. To give you an example, siach means a shrubbery, and sicha means a conversation. Lo suach basode, which is said about Yitzchak Avinu, means to pray. It's also called sicha. And another example is niv, which means fruit, and navi, which means a prophet, somebody who says. Prophet, the Greek word, means somebody who speaks out. Enough thoughts. I apologize if it hangs together a little bit like loose sand. I've tried to keep a little bit of a coherence around the theme of what language is, what speaking is, what the pivotal role is of the human ability to speak, to plan, to deliberate, and to take history into account, not only the history that has been, but the history that will come. There is no such thing as an ordinary day. Every day is one day closer to Moshiach. Every day is one day in which history is being made. And I wish you a sweet year, prosperous year, meaningful year, and an awesome Rosh Hashanah. Good job.
והוא היה, והוא עובר, והוא עובר, והוא יהיה בתפארה. אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציא נברא לעת נשא בחפץ כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובר והוא יהיה בתפארה. אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציא נברא לעת נשא בחפץ כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובר בתפארה והוא עובר והוא יהיה בתפארה.